You're listening to the NASM-CPT Podcast with Rick Richey, winner of the Share Care Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey, y'all, and welcome to the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Rick Richey, and today I'm excited because I have a guest, and what's exciting about this guest is that she is an Olympian, and I know that there are some of you out there who have been doing the physique and bodybuilding coach thing, and you are thinking that this is the Olympia bodybuilding, and it's not. This is the Olympics Olympia. So I have an Olympic athlete. She did the heptathlon, which is the grouping of like 7 different events. And she is with us today. She's also an NASM certified personal trainer. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Louise Hazel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you're here. So do us a favor, give us a little information about you, your background, the athletic events that you've done, and how you kind of got connected with NASM.
Absolutely. As you quite rightly said, I'm a heptathlete. So my former career, I was an Olympic athlete for Great Britain. I took part in the heptathlon event, which is 7 track and field events. Normally, when I say heptathlon, people always think, oh, like, is that horse riding and all of that stuff? No. It's all track and field.
But they should probably add it. That would be fun.
Absolutely.
No.
Maybe now that I've retired. So the heptathlon is 7 track and field events: high jump, long jump, shot put, javelin, 800 meters, 200 meters, and these sprint hurdles. So it has its roots typically in lots of power events, which is really interesting. And it's been a humongous, and we'll probably touch upon this later. But, with its roots in power, it's extremely useful to me as a personal trainer, and now training women to get them to understand that there are different ways to train strength. With the only event being the 800 meters, which is typically, has its roots in endurance. I'm basically a power athlete. I was predominantly a sprint-based heptathlete, which means, tons of speed, lots of fast twitch, muscle fibers. And now I own a gym in Los Angeles since retiring from track and field. It's called Slay, and it's a personal training studio. I would say it's female first. And I say that because we're probably 95% female, and of the male clients that we do have that come in, they're typically the husbands of the wives. So it's a real kind of reverse in terms of what we're typically seeing in the health and fitness industry. And I felt like it was an important space to create. As I moved to Los Angeles and as I transitioned into personal training, and we'll touch, I guess, more upon that as well. As I transitioned into training, I realized that there really wasn't any safe spaces for women to explore their bodies, explore their relationship with fitness outside of typical big box gyms or more boutique facilities that were always catered and really seemed to be centered around serving the male customer first. So I wanted to create something different and a place where women could really explore their bodies in a way that they hadn't necessarily had the opportunity. And that's really, what our space Slay is all about.
Okay, so let me ask about that. I knew about Slay. I knew Slay existed. I wasn't entirely sure what it was, so I was going to ask you about that. Did you work at gyms as a fitness professional prior to going to this, or is just your experience being in gyms and you were like, I know what I want and I know what I don't want?
Absolutely. So my experience with gyms was predominantly as a member, and then obviously as an elite athlete. And so my first introduction to a gym, we actually owned a gym back home in the UK. My parents ran a successful pub and hotel business. And so we actually had a fitness gym, or at least a boxing gym, at the back of our hotel. And so from a young age, I would train with the local boxing squad, and I was responsible for coming up with the ab exercises, which was really good fun. And then, my more formal gym setting, my introduction to that was really a high performance center where we were, let's say, maybe 12 athletes tops, maybe like 8 to 12 elite athletes training in a very small space. Probably the gym, I would say, was maybe 2,000 square feet with 3 lifting platforms. There was very limited amount of equipment. We never trained with kettlebells. It was really just geared towards the high performance sport. We had world record holders. It was literally a gym for us 8 athletes. Other athletes weren't allowed in the gym. So we were very lucky and fortunate to have this
nice.
Unique space to ourselves. And, after retiring from sport, that was the first time really that I invested in my own gym membership. And I noticed, especially, in Los Angeles, that there was a huge kind of cultural shift. I'd always trained alongside my male counterparts in track and field. But when I reached a commercial gym, I noticed that the members were very separated. The female clients typically skewed towards the cardiovascular equipment and perhaps fixed machinery. And the male clients and the male members were, taking over the free weight section and every other square footage. And so I noticed that there was this culture and dynamic that I'd never really been part of before. And so, having been an athlete, I always had the confidence to maneuver around the gym, pick up the weights that I needed, rack up the bar, perhaps do some cleans and, perform lifts that really just weren't being typically performed by many members of the gym at all. And that was when really I knew that I needed to create my own space, because there really wasn't anything out there. There really wasn't the space in Los Angeles, at least, for what it was I wanted to create. So our gym is very much more like the high performance center, small square footage.
Do you see that? I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you have these things, like you're talking about loading up a bar and doing cleans or some other Olympic lifts, in this environment that you're going into, what is it like for women in general? Because even for men, a lot of times here where I am in New York, you might see lifting platforms and just think that it's a squat rack with some cushions in the bottom. So when you start to get people involved in this, what's generally is there pushback? Is there resistance when you have women and you're like, hey, we are about to do a hang clean followed by a clean, then we're going to learn snatches, and are they like, whoa, this is not for me? Or are they like, this is really a phenomenal opportunity?
I think, in membership gyms, I like to call the kind of lifting platform the intimidation station for women. It's not something that they've grown up with. If they hadn't competed in, sports at college, then they may have never been introduced to Olympic lifting. And so they haven't yet, really ever experienced or pushed their bodies, beyond the capabilities of just basic general fitness and general preparedness. And so, I have the opportunity at Slay to be able to show them something completely different than they've ever done before. And that to me is a really beautiful transition. I always start off just familiarizing our clients with free weights. And then, we might move on to barbells. And before they know it, they might be hitting, a hang clean or something like that. And so my aim as a coach is not only to get my clients to their individual goals, but also to teach them something that they would never have had the opportunity to perhaps learn. And that to me is extremely worthwhile, because I think as a woman, it's a completely different experience than it is for a man stepping into a gym, but to unearth new skills that you never knew that you had it adds confidence in a completely different way, completely different than losing 10 pounds. It really, really adds to creating a very holistic approach to one's lifestyle changes.
Right. So how did you then kind of go from being a professional athlete to connecting with the NASM, becoming NASM certified? Did you have coaches that had that education that had worked with you when you were doing your training? Like, what's the history with this?
So education for me has always been extremely important. I was actually an ambassador for the equivalent of NASM in the UK called REPS, the Register of Exercise
Oh
Professionals.
yeah.
So I'd always grown, ever since qualifying as a personal trainer, I'd been in an ambassadorial role. And I always felt like it was really important to be a spokesperson for women in the fitness industry, and also a leader. It's important to me that I get the opportunity to pass on the information and the skills that I've learned as an elite performer onto the next generation of aspiring female trainers. I think it's really important that we set the bar really, really high. And we understand that there's entry level, coming in as a personal trainer, but the things that are going to make you more marketable, more successful as a trainer is your continued education. Those are the things that are going to help you to add value to your clients on an everyday basis. It doesn't matter whether it's, a new kettlebell instructor course, or it's with regards to becoming just a better professional in general. There are always ways that you can upskill in your profession if you're looking for that self-improvement and that work. And so it was a natural transition for me to seek out NASM. And I recognize them as a global leader in the US, or at least a global leader, national leader in the education space. And, I reached out immediately when I got to Los Angeles to make sure that I was current and held the necessary documents and certificates and qualifications in order to transition my qualification in the UK over to the US territory.
I love that. That's fantastic. And you're speaking my language. I have a few personal training gyms in New York, and every once in a while I get some people that are like, I've been training for a long time, and I ask for their CPR AED, their national certification that's NCCA accredited, and their insurance. And they might give me two of the three, and then they'll say, I don't have my NASM or whatever lapsed, but I don't really feel like I need to do that because I've been doing this for a long time. And I'm like, you're talking to the wrong person. Like, I'm not the person that you are gonna get by with this, because I've gone through a lot of education and I don't stop. It's not like, oh, I've reached this point in my life where I can stop learning. It's like I've reached a point in my life where I realize that you don't stop learning, that it is a process. You're constantly taking it on. So when I
Absolutely.
go through and bring this stuff in, it's vital for me to hear other people talk about this process of lifelong learning and being proud of being educated, not being on the other end going, oh, I'm too good, I'm too smart already, and I don't need anything else. Like, we can always work on self and progress in that way.
100%. I'm totally with you. I think that I think if you feel like you're done learning in life, then probably two things. There's a level of arrogance, that comes with that. And there's a level of humbling that comes with understanding that we don't necessarily know it all. And we haven't experienced every single client in every single situation. There's always something to learn every single day. And that's not necessarily just about the reps and sets. It's not about the load. It's
Right.
sometimes about how to deal with the individual, and understanding that part of being a personal trainer is being able to select the appropriate response, whether that be a personal response in terms of an interaction, whether it be the correct response in how to check out a client, or whether it be the right response in terms of how is my client progressing towards their goals, and what's the next step for them with regards to the next training block, for example. We're never done learning. And as a person who has, really been around some of the top professionals, strength and conditioning coaches, massage therapists, chiropractors, one of the things that were really underpinned all of the people that I'd worked with at Olympic level was the fact that they were taking regular courses and they were regularly upskilling. You know, my massage therapist who worked with me for the Olympic Games, you know, every single year she'd be doing something new, taking acupuncture. She actually recently went back and got a master's, wrote a book about sacroiliac joint dysfunction. And so, you know, these are the professionals that, again, saw me through my athletics career and were already approaching their kind of late 40s, early 50s, and still upskilling, still coming together as a community in order to better support the athletes that they serve. And so my answer is, if you think you know it all, then you're probably in the wrong job. There's always something to learn about how to better serve people.
Yeah, thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Rick Richey, and I am delighted to host NASM certified personal trainer Louise Hazel, who is also an Olympic heptathlete who has retired and moved on into the personal training world, has a gym in Los Angeles. Let me ask you a question about that transition. What was it like to hang up the hat and say, all right, so the world, being a professional athlete is now over? First of all, is that hard to say? Was it hard to do? And then what was the transition like? Were you grasping for things, or did you know that this was your next step?
I think uniquely for me personally, it was easy. As soon as the Olympics had been concluded in 2012, I knew that that was my last ever heptathlon. I then participated, so that would have been in the July, August of that year. And I already knew in the January I was going to actually focus just on the hurdles, as that was an area of my heptathlon that I really succeeded in. And I remember getting to the indoor season in track and field and looking around and just feeling a bit lackluster and a bit stale. And I also looked at my training group, whom I absolutely adored during my track and field career. And I was kind of bored of the same conversations. And I was like, it's definitely time for me to move on. And I remember saying to my mum, you know, I'm done with the heptathlon. I'm retiring from it. This was my last competition. And I think when you explain that to your friends and family, it's almost more sad for them than it is for you. I'd already made my decision a long time ago. And it certainly feels much better as an athlete. And I would recommend this to any athlete who's competing at any level, to dump the sport first. Don't let the sport dump you. And what I mean by that is, when I speak to fellow athletes who have had to retire from sport because they had a career-ending injury, or they're retiring because they never reached the peak or the level that they thought that they would reach, the key really is to understand your potential and your limit. And once you feel like you've kind of hit that limit, it's time to kind of cut the cord and do so really quickly. So, you know, I transitioned into working in the television industry in the UK as a sports presenter and sports personality. So I would take part in shows such as Ninja Warrior, for example. And I would come on and I would basically be what I call paid muscle. I would basically have to come on and perform, you know, all kinds of different athletic, not basically the same as the heptathlon, really, just, you know, perform athletic achievements on screen. It was no different than track and field, apart from the fact that I might be going up against a pop star or something like that.
Right.
And then it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles, working in television was great. I took part in a television show called MTV's The Challenge, which is hugely popular, wildly popular over here. We did a spin-off show called Pros versus Joes, or Champs versus Stars.
Oh, yeah.
Champs versus Stars. And again, you know, that was really fun. It was a great way for me to express my athleticism and also personality. And then after the show, what I realized is there really aren't too many other television shows that require, you know, their hosts to be extremely physical, you know, outside the realm of sport. And I knew at that point that personal training was calling me. And I was scared to really take on a book of clients and start building out my diary, because I always thought that television jobs, you know, sometimes would take up to 8 weeks of my time, would then prevent me from serving the client base that I created. And so I was always in this kind of place where, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? I was fearful. And for the first time, I just thought, just stop doubting yourself, build out the diary. And if you end up booking a television job, you'll figure it out. And it was for the first time I actually, spoke to another trainer in the business, a male trainer, and I felt like I had some support. So I thought, at least if I end up with a few clients, I can always have him take them on for a little period of time. So that was a really interesting thing. Really understanding that a lot of the time as personal trainers, unless you're working in a big box gym, we are individual contractors, we're self-employed, but understanding that there's strength in community, and aligning myself with other trainers was the thing that enabled me to actually become the trainer I am today, but also be now a business owner, which is altogether completely different skill set.
That is true. And I've talked on the podcast before. I know a lot of people are interested in how can I own a gym? I want to have my own space. And, just because you're a good tactician doesn't necessarily mean you're a good business owner.
Yes.
And we see that a lot in management, like people who are really good at personal trainers in the corporate field, in the corporate industry, and they say, oh, this person's training 40 sessions a week, let's make them a manager. And they're not a good manager. They're just a really fantastic trainer. And
Absolutely.
so sometimes you need to keep your strong people in their strong suit. Just because they're good at it doesn't mean they can help lead other people to be good at it. And there's a drive there, and it pulls you in different ways, right? So I don't know if I'm assuming you've probably experienced this, but when you start transitioning also to focus on business, your continuing education also starts to focus a little more on business. So you may not necessarily remember origin and insertion of muscles and their innervation and their joint action and plane of motion, but you're starting to figure out what your key performance indicators are and how to build your business and what is the difference between marketing and advertising and PR and all of those things that start to guide your attention more, because again, you're trying to create this balance between being the tactician and being the business owner.
Absolutely. I think you're either working in the business as the trainer or on the business as, the CEO or, the owner. And I like to think about, I like to run the business very, very seasonally. So for me, the times when I really love to focus on education is the back end of the year in the winter. In this weird sense, because we're kind of all tucked away. So between the months of November through to January, that's when I absolutely love to dive in on education. And we're always tapping in. In the gym, we have 4 trainers now, including myself. And every Friday we have a team meeting. And in the team meeting, we set aside time to talk about housekeeping items or, business topics. But then we also pick an educational pointer as well. And so that might be something that we've worked on with one of our clients. It might be a question that's come up in the gym, so that we have a melting pot and there's communication there, and also learning opportunities. And sometimes those learning opportunities are mine to be received. And so creating an environment whereby you carve out time. It doesn't matter whether you are a business owner or a personal trainer and you're an employee, but carving out a specific time, I find, of the year to focus on education, because Lord knows, when you're doing perhaps 40 hours a week, the time that you spend outside of personal training, a lot of the time I feel like is time that you want to take back for yourself, because it really is a service job. And, when you're seeing clients back to back and you're not just serving them from a programming perspective, you can be serving them from an emotional perspective. It does take a lot out of you. So, scheduling the time to take that education side back for yourself, I would really encourage all of you to do.
100%. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Rick Richey, and I'm hosting Louise Hazel, who is here sharing her wisdom, experience, and know-how when it comes to her experience as an athlete, but then moving on into what it is that what we do in our daily lives. She's a fitness professional. She's out there changing lives, meeting people, instructing clients, running businesses, all the things that we have to do as fitness professionals. Even if we work for somebody else, it is somebody else's business, but it's our business, and they're our clients, and we care for them, and we guide them, and we foster them in so many different ways. But you've created a wonderful niche in what you do, where you are working primarily with women. And I know that you wanted to create that space to give women a safe place where they feel like they can really excel. Are there some challenges that you've come across where you're like, all right, so now I'm working with women and I have this environment I like to train them in? What are some of the challenges that you might get from that?
Yeah, so I think the main challenge is one of misinformation amongst female population. One of the things that we are really challenged by in the gym every single day of the week, but more importantly from January onwards, has been the ways in which this year we are helping our clients to understand more about their nutrition, more about their calorie intake, and the role in which their nutrition plays in assisting them towards their health and fitness goals. So the majority of our female clients, majority of them all have weight loss goals. And so the idea that therefore less calories, the better, and making them understand that actually that's not necessarily the case for some of the women who have come in with, problems with regards to hormones, being in calorie deficits for too long. There's definitely a fear factor amongst female populations of gaining fat mass, lifting and gaining muscle mass. And so there really is this fine dance with, as much as, our brand is about, and we've done a good job at creating a space that enables women to focus very much on what their bodies can do every day, as opposed to how their bodies look. The huge challenge really is the fact that a lot of the goals that we encounter are vanity goals. And so enabling and giving our clients the ability and the confidence to understand that whilst there might be this goal that is very much an aesthetic goal in mind, that there are so many other benefits to the exercise that they're doing on a daily basis and the lifestyle changes that they're making for themselves, and getting them out of the scarcity mindset that everything is just short term and that I can lose X amount of pounds in X amount of weeks, and really breaking down some of the misinformation that we're up against in the industry itself. And also, the evolving of new products to the industry. So this year, I would say that the major threat to the female fitness industry is Ozempic. And so we're having many, many conversations at the moment about the impact of that on the female physique and also the female psyche. We talk about, the reason I think we're here as personal trainers isn't to take the shortcut. And that's never really been the way in track and field either. There's never been, I remember a quote that says, oh gosh, I can't remember it now. It's so funny.
That's right. Take your time and let it come to you, because I know it's going to be good.
Absolutely. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. And so I think never a truer word was said, especially when that pertains to the fitness industry. When we're looking for quick results, it's always at the expense of our wider health. Where the new drug Ozempic is concerned, I'm explaining to a lot of the ladies in the gym who have questions about it, perhaps who have friends that are taking it. And even at the weekend, I was, explaining the pros and cons. I'm like, do you really want to be in a position whereby you are reducing your lean muscle mass, your skeletal muscle mass, the thing that's going to give you the longevity long term, the thing that's going to keep you bolt upright, keep that posture in place? And so people really are still trying to value aesthetic goals over physical strength and the things that are going to give them long-term health and fitness and vitality. So yeah, it's a challenge on a daily basis, but that's why we're here, right?
All right, so I'm gonna have this is real talk for the two of us. So I went in a few weeks ago on an episode because of Ozempic, and I'm diabetic, so this was a big deal for people that are in my shoes to be without a necessary pharmaceutical because other people are trying to lose that last 5 to 10 pounds.
Mm,
And listen, I'm not necessarily against this, especially if it needs it. But I think what we're really taking away is that there is a vanity goal, there is a gratuitous fitness experience that people are trying to get. Right, here's my outcome is the end result is I want to be thinner, I want to be leaner, I want to be a little bit stronger. And what I want people to want is the health benefits that come along with fitness. And we don't know, like, what are the health benefits that come along with Ozempic. I mean, for people that are diabetic, it's pretty dire. So it can be very helpful to have that. But what does it mean? Like, are you fitter? Are you stronger? What's your path like? What's your general wellness like? Where the way that when we work out, when we exercise, and we put ourselves in a mental state that helps to strengthen resolve, to push past obstacles, to put ourselves in an uncomfortable situation on purpose,
mhm.
to do something that makes me stronger physically and mentally, that changes the way we see things. That changes the way we see and experience life in a
Mm,
really positive way. And I'm
yeah,
a firm believer that builds in other parts of our lives, right?
yeah,
So when we do that here in this microcosm, then I can take those challenges and I can start to apply it to other parts of my life, and I get stronger and I get better, and maybe I can become a better husband, maybe I can be a better father, maybe I can be a better business
mhm,
owner or an employee or whatever it is, because we create these moments around this. And I don't think Ozempic does that for us. And so
yeah,
that's kind of stuff really gets to me, because when I ask you about your journey, and you said that, let's say you decided early on that you wanted to be in the Olympics. And I say, okay, great. But you hated training. You didn't like training. There's nothing about training that you liked. There was no intrinsic motivation for it. And so if I say, okay, well, you get to Olympics, you're not good enough. But how about this? We put a medal around your neck and we say that you're in the Olympics. Like, there's no pride in that.
keep the
There's
medal,
no
I'd say.
yes, yeah.
Keep
Anyway,
it.
so I'm
I'm
yes.
a big believer in what you don't work for will be taken away from you very quickly. And so, I think the thing that you were saying, the things that we see in fitness, but the reality of it is, the things that we do towards our fitness become who we are. And so there's a level of integrity, I think, um, to aspiring and to turning up, not just aspiring, but turning up every day and being intentional about your level of physical activity, being intentional about your nutrition and your diet, and be intentional about healing your body, whatever that means for you. Healing your body can be getting up and doing a 10-minute walk in the morning, and that being all you do for the rest of the day. Like, what are you doing for yourself that is enabling you to live a healthier, fitter, leaner, mentally, physically, emotionally lifestyle? So yeah, I think,
Do you have something like that you do for yourself?
oh, absolutely. A number of things. So for me, I've recently been playing with my own schedule. So for example, I typically start training. My first client is at 6 a.m. and I normally see 6 clients back to back. It's really very busy at the minute, and that's just my diary in general. So rather than wait until 4 p.m. To do my own workout, I've been tagging it on at the end of the day and scheduling it into my diary. And that has completely changed the way that the rest of my day goes. If I get out of the gym, having seen my 6th client and come home, have lunch, inevitably I'll take a 2-hour nap. Like, I'm a big napper. And that was like the same schedule that I had when I was competing in the Olympics and training twice a day.
Right.
And then by the time I wake up at 4 o'clock, I'm feeling groggy. I still want to do some work on the business. But now it's a toss up. Do I answer these emails, or do I go to the gym and get my workout done? And getting my workout done for me earlier on in the day, servicing myself with the same level of intention that I'm servicing my clients, it feeds me. Like, I now have the rest of the day to work on the business, and that becomes a little bit more somewhat voluntary. I get to pick and I get to prioritize, and I have a clearer mind, and I don't have to worry. And if I want to go downstairs and do another little, 10 minutes on the elliptical or whatever, I can. It's an absolute bonus. I guess the thing that I've been doing this year differently is really serving myself as not necessarily before my clients, but serving myself as at the same time as serving my clients. But
prioritizing you.
Absolutely. And then going back to what you were saying before, I remember when we were talking obviously about shortcuts, and it took me back to a memory of training for the Commonwealth Games. And when I was training for the Commonwealth Games, my coach actually left and got offered a job in London. So I was completely and utterly coachless. So I basically had to coach myself through the season. It was around about 9 months. I didn't have a coach. I had to pull together a high jump coach, a shot put coach, a javelin coach. I had to pull together a training squad, like a running group to run with. And on Sundays was my 800 meter session. I hate running 800 meters. It's the only thing that hurt. And so I had to set myself up in an environment that would cause me to succeed and that would hold me accountable. And so my friend Ben at the time would meet me at the track with a stopwatch, and we'd go out, and all I set myself on Sunday was my 800 meter session. That was all I could manage. And it was the worst part of the week. And we'd meet at the track at about 10 a.m. And by 10:45, that 800 meter session would be done. And by the end of the kind of like, as we were approaching, I would say like the last few months towards the competition, I've never felt so confident in all my life. And I remember saying to my physiotherapist, Pora, I'm going to win the Commonwealth Games. And he said, good mental attitude, Louise. I like that. I said, no, I'm going to win the Commonwealth Games. I'm like, I'm not gassing. I'm not talking it up. I'm going to win that competition. And the reason I knew I was going to win it is because I'd done the work. And on the day, I remember walking into the competition, there were 3 girls that, on paper, that were way better than me. They'd scored better than me in every single competition they'd ever done. And on the day, I remember thinking, this was my competition to lose. And by the time the 4th event was completed, the long jump, I was leading. And we went into the second day, and I was leading after the 5th event, leading after the 6th event. And when it came to close in that 800 meters, I remember thinking back to every single one of those Sunday morning 10 a.m. sessions with my friend Ben. And whilst it was a grueling 800 meters, when I got through it and my name flashed up number 1 on the board, there was nothing and no one that could have taken that medal away from me. And everything I had went into that medal. And I can't explain. And I think that those people who are going through their journeys, whether that be, a physical transformation, whether it be recovering from chemotherapy, whether it be getting, into shape post their first baby, when you are in the middle of that journey and it feels really, really tough, remember that's exactly how it's meant to feel. And that's the thing that makes you really, really special, is the fact that not everybody has the mental capacity, the mental strength, the mental fortitude to do that for themselves. And that's exactly why you're here. You're supposed to challenge yourself on a daily basis.
Oh, that's fantastic. Listen, Louise, I don't want to eat up all your time, but I do have something else I want to talk to you about. But before we do, as we wrap up, is there anything, because these are personal trainers that listen to the podcast, is there anything that you would like to say to fitness professionals right now that are here, that are listening to you, that you think would be motivating, inspiring?
Well, first, I would say a technical point. I would say do not
Mm.
underestimate the value of power training. I feel like it is the one
Yeah.
area that gets completely and utterly overlooked whenever I'm reading, our course textbooks and I'm thinking about the application. I think this is the area that really, really is completely underutilized, especially in the gym. The goal is either to get smaller or to get bigger. And especially amongst female populations, one of the techniques and one of the methods and modalities that I use is a lot of power training. Women don't typically want to get increase in size. However, they do want to increase in strength. And so power training for me has been the key modality for that. And fortunately for me, I have an extensive background in it, which is great. So I would say to personal trainers, if you know somebody who has a background in performance sport, in a power event, seek them out, sit with them, ask them about their training, find out what the type of training that they were doing that was specific to their sport. What are the things that you can bring into the gym that might be great for your clients? Things that are not necessarily going to be high risk, but might be high reward, and focus on those things. I think it's just so underutilized. And from an inspirational and aspirational perspective, be really efficient with your time. Like, you don't just use your diary to schedule your clients, use your diary to schedule the rest of your life. So it might be your protein shake. Don't lose yourself, because the reason I think that most of us got into the industry in the first place because we were either a fan of fitness or we were, an athlete of some sort. Don't lose yourself in the process of serving others. Schedule in the things that make you a great athlete first, and then schedule in your clients, because you'll always serve them with everything you've got.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, and this was just while you were talking, it made me think. You mentioned that you were in the Olympics in 2012. Is that right?
Mhm.
Is that the year that the Olympics were in London?
Correct. Yeah, it was the home Olympics.
What was that like for you?
Incredible, for
That's
any
awesome.
athlete. And, obviously Los Angeles 2028, the Olympics are coming here in 2028, which is so exciting.
That's
For
very
any
exciting.
athlete, it's so rare for you as an athlete to get to compete at home championships, a home Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Never happens. Like the last one, I think, was, I don't know, in the 60s or something. So it really was a once in a lifetime opportunity. But not only that, it was one that I had to fight for.
Yeah.
And more importantly, the interesting thing about it was, in track and field, I was the first person to step out on the track for Great Britain. So my number or my bib and myself, I was the first athlete to step out into the stadium to compete for Great Britain. And I remember on that day, we were concluding our event on Super Saturday. Now, Super Saturday was the conclusion of the men's 100 meters. Mo Farah in the 1500 meters, a British athlete who won gold. And then also my friend Greg Rutherford, who also won gold, plus my teammate Jessica Ennis, who also won gold. That's why it was
Jessica Ennis.
Yeah, it was Super Saturday. So Friday, when we stepped out into the track for the hurdles, the stadium was full, 80,000 people. But when they saw my vest, because it was a home crowd, it erupted and it was electric. It was electric. There's nothing like it. And so when you're running around that bend for the 200 meters, you are floating. And things just feel much easier when you've got 40 to 80,000 people cheering you on and cheering your name. The adrenaline is next level.
That is an incredible experience in a career where you've had some really, really remarkable experiences, and I'm sure some remarkable disappointments as well. But because such is life. Such is life.
Yeah.
And what I tell people too is, you can't fear the failure because it is moving past the failures that allows us to get to our successes, right? So
100%.
don't fear that failure. And I think sometimes the fear of failure paralyzes us and keeps
Yeah.
us from trying to reach towards something more significant.
Yeah, and I would say I've definitely experienced this myself, even as a trainer. I think there's a lot of the time that doubt: is this the right
Mhm.
exercise? Is this the right amount of reps? Is this the right amount of reps and sets? Is this the right amount of load? There are so many questions,
Yeah.
and the reality of it is the perfect program does not exist. It
That's
does
right.
not exist. You're never going to get. Let's say I like to program my clients. I like to create like an overview for a year, and everybody's like, what the hell? And I don't write that program in pen. That would be ridiculous. If I
Right.
wrote that program in pen, that's just not how life works. But I like to have an overview of the journey that I want to take my client on. Like, what do I think that they can 1 rep max? Well, I'm not going to find out in week 1 and injure them. But I might be able to find out in February 2024, and that's going to be really exciting. And so, yeah, the perfect program does not exist. Be okay with tinkering and tweaking as you go along. And also you'll find, I also have this weird kind of like, it's almost like a sixth sense when it comes to training. Pay attention to your clients. Like, they're going to naturally be, one of the things that I love to do is, when I work with my clients, is figure out what type of athlete they would be in track and field. So I'm like,
Interesting.
yeah, Sarah, she's a 60-meter hurdler. I'm going to train her like a 60-meter hurdler. Oh, Georgina, she's like a discus thrower. Therefore, I'd love to see a bit of this in her program. And so, the beautiful thing I think about what we do at Slay is there's this connecting people back to their inner athlete. And I say that to say, like, watch your clients, like really watch them. Are they better hingers than they are squatters? Then lean into their hinge exercises. Like, pull out the best of what it is they have to offer and focus on those things. And at the heptathlon, what I would say, we used to spend twice the amount of time on our weaknesses than our strengths. So we would bring our weaknesses up to the even level of our strengths, and then everything could move forward together. So that's also another really cute little tip, especially if you see somebody struggling in one area. You might want to sprinkle in, as my husband says, the medicine in with the applesauce.
Yeah, nice. Yes. Well, a little bit of applesauce helps the medicine go down. With that said, I want to express my gratitude for you taking time out of your day to be on the show. I appreciate that. If you don't mind, can you give maybe your social media, things like that, where people can follow you if they want to know more about you?
Absolutely. You can follow me at Louise Hazel, and you can follow the gym Slay at Slay Athletic.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I hope this helps to inspire you. It inspires me to learn better, do better, perform better. She talked a lot about women's fitness. If you haven't checked out, if that seems like something of interest to you and you haven't checked out the women's fitness specialist that NASM offers, that may be something of interest to you. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, you can do so. Hit me up on Instagram at dr.rickrichey, or you can email me, rick.richey@nasm.org. Keep inspiring people to fitness. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM-CPT Podcast.